Thank you for inviting me to the Faire of Champions Viking Invasion. Do we have any Vikings in the crowd today? Yeah. Skull!
Go!
Ray from Godwood Cups has graciously sponsored my performance here today. So thank you, my friend. He is the maker of my beautiful golden mead mug. Now, the only reason that we know anything of Viking culture today is from performances such as this. Talented musicians such as Opal and Jade and Opal Dragons, storytellers, singers, skalds, and poets who tell stories around the fire and keep our traditions alive. Our people are not known for writing down things, printing books. We make things that last, like axes and swords and beard combs. So our traditions are an oral one, a living tradition. It is my sincere love of the wisdom and the stories of our culture that compels me to share them with you. And I hope that you will take these stories that I relate to you and go tell them around your own hearth fires, around your own campfires, and among your own tribes. Share the wisdom that they contain, for that is how our tradition continues to live. Especially those of you who are hearing our stories for the first time today. Now, I mentioned this is my new mead cup. Mead has been an inspiration for skalds, poets, jesters, and fools throughout history. Today's story is how the mead of poetry came to the gods. At the culmination of the great war between the Aesir and the Vanir tribes, the gods were tired of fighting, and so they forged a pact between the two tribes. They feasted, they drank wine, and they came together over a vat in which the gods all spat into, one after another. They formed a being out of this fermented berry juice. Kvasir was his name. Kvasir was not a god himself, but a creation of the gods. He possessed the wisdom of all the gods combined. Kvasir traveled across the 9 realms and was known for his ability to solve any problem posted to him, often with another question. Kvasir was said to possess the wisdom of Odin himself, and was often invited to villages such as this to solve disputes and dispense wisdom. Now, 2 treacherous dwarves known as Fjalar and Galar. These names mean deceiver and screamer. Heard of Kvasir and invited him to feast at their hall. After dinner, Fjalar and Galar invited Kvasir to a back room where they had knives concealed in their robes. They slew Kvasir and drained his blood into a great cauldron known as Odrerir. They mixed honey and spices with the blood of Kvasir and brewed a special mead that they kept for themselves. The blood of Kvasir would grant whoever drank it great wisdom and the ability to sing or recite poetry as that of Bragi himself. Soon Fjalar and Galar entertained two gruesome guests, the Jotun Gilling and his wife. They were a quarrelsome couple, constantly fighting amongst themselves. It wasn't before long that Fjalar and Galar, tired of hearing their arguments, and asked Gilling if he would take the sea air with them in their boat. He did not want to, for he could not swim. But the treacherous dwarfs assured him he would be safe with them. They rowed him out into the deepest part of the ocean surrounding Midgard. When it was time to row back, however, Fjalar and Galar began to rock the boat. It capsized, and Gilling sunk beneath the waves. That was the end of Gilling. Fjalar and Galar returned to their hall. When they told the wife of Gilling what had happened, she began to wail and lament, and her crying annoyed the evil dwarves. Fjalar whispered something treacherous in Galar's ear and left the room. When the wife of Gilling could wail no longer, Galar said, "Perhaps you would also like to take the sea air to ease your mind." The unsuspecting wife of Gilling passed through the entrance to their hall, where Fjalar was waiting above. He dropped a giant lodestone on the head of the giantess, ending her cries. It wasn't before long that the son of Gilling came looking for them. A massive fire giant named Sotung, looking to avenge his parents. He located the dwarves and at once grabbed them by their throats and began to wade out to sea. He walked them past where they could stand and placed them on a rock. "When high tide comes for you, I will have my revenge." "Wait," bargained Fjalar and Galar, "for we possess something that could pay the debt of your slain parents." "What could you possibly possess?" "We have such an amazing meat, brewed from the blood of the Aesir Kvasir. It grants the drinker powers of the gods, and to be a poet is of the highest calling, as everyone knows. Sutung considered their request, but he did not move them from the rock. "You will get what you deserve, and I will take the mead for myself," said the giant as he waded back to shore. That was the last anyone ever saw of Fjalar and Galar. Sutung found the cauldron Oldarir, hoisted it above his shoulders, and journeyed back to his mountain, the Hnitborg, where he burrowed a cave underneath the mountain with only a secret passage to his knowledge and that of his daughter Gulveig. He secreted away the cauldron Oldarir, full of the mead of Kvasir's blood, deep below the Hnitborg, covered the secret passage, and bade his daughter Gulveig to guard it day and night. But Sutung did not keep the knowledge of the mead to himself, as Fjalar and Galar had done. He bragged far and wide about how he took revenge for his parents, how he stole the meat from them and hid it under the mountain. Soon word got back to Asgard, to Odin's ears. As a seeker of knowledge and wisdom, and eager to revenge Kvasir himself, Odin knew he must retrieve the mead and take it out of the unworthy hands of the Jotun Sutung. So he journeyed down the great tree of Yggdrasil into the land of Jotunheim, disguising himself as a farmhand. He came upon a fertile valley. Odin, with the gift of foresight, knew who lived in the valley. It was not Sutung, but his brother, Baugi. Baugi's 9 thralls worked the fields before Odin. The giant himself was nowhere to be found. The slaves carried large sickles, and they harvested grain day and night. Odin disguised himself as a worker named Bolverker, which means worker of evil, and approached the thralls. "Who is your master?" said the Lord of Asgard in disguise. "Baugi, brother of Sutung," said the thralls. "And he makes you work like this day and night? If we don't work, we will be slain," said the thralls. "Perhaps I have something that could make your work go a bit easier," said Bolverker, and from his pouch he produced the finest whetstone any of the workers had ever laid eyes on. He sharpened one scythe after another, and the workers agreed that it was the finest stone they had seen, for their blades cut through the grass as if it was nothing. After talking amongst themselves, the workers approached Bolverker, asking to buy his whetstone. "I would be happy to part with my whetstone," said Bolverker, "but only to one of you who can feast me tonight in the manner in which I am accustomed." The thralls jostled amongst themselves, arguing and fighting, calling to be the one to feast Bolverker that evening. With a wicked grin on his face, Bolverker held the whetstone up and tossed it high into the air. The thralls themselves ran for it. And in their haste, cut each other's throats with the newly sharpened scythes. The whetstone fell, Bolverker caught it, and retreated back into the mountain for the evening. The next morning, Baugi came to survey his fields, finding all 9 of his thralls dead in a pool of their own blood. A lone figure approached from afar. Bolverker walked up to Baugi. "What has happened to your thralls?" "Someone has slain them," said the Jotun. "Would you know anything about that?" "No, of course not. But I see you have fields unworked here, and all your grain will go to spoil if it's not brought in." "I am myself the greatest worker in the 9 realms," said Bolverker. "I can do the work of 9 men." "I don't believe you." "I tell you what," said Bolverker. "Let me work for you all summer. I will bring in your grain. And in return, all I ask is 1 sip of the mead that your brother owns, the blood of Kvasir." "That has nothing to do with me," said Baugi. "But if you work all summer and bring in my grain, I will speak to Suttung on your behalf." And so, Bolverker set to work. He toiled day and night without rest. As the days began to grow shorter and winter approached, and the work was complete, Bolverker went to Baugi. "I have completed my half of the bargain, great Baugi. Now, shall we go and talk to your brother, Suttung?" "We shall." And so, Baugi and Bolverker journeyed to the Nidborg, the great mountain home of the giant Suttung. But Suttung would not part with 1 sip of his special mead. "I don't know this man. Why would I share my mead with him?" said Suttung. Bolverker whispered in Baugi's ear. "Come, Baugi. This is useless. Do you know where he keeps the meat?" "Perhaps I do." But now Baugi began to suspect Bolverker of having an ulterior motive. They went to the great mountain Nidborg. Baugi was testing Bolverker and said, "The meat is hidden deep inside the mountain, but we cannot get it out, so it is useless to try." Bolverker produced a great auger from his pouch. Ratti, it is known. "Drill a small hole into the side of the mountain," said Bolverker, "and let me see in there for myself." Baugi became suspicious even more. But he decided to see how long he could play it out. And so, he put the auger to the side of the mountain, began to twist it, and it began to drill into the side of the Nidborg. There, it is done, as he removed the auger. But Bolverker blew into the hole, and his face was covered in dust. "Are you trying to trick me?" said Bolverker. Baugi said nothing. He put Ratti back into the hole and began to turn the auger again. After an hour of twisting, the auger broke through into the interior room carved by Suttung. When Bolverker blew in the hole, the air went through, and he quickly transformed himself into a serpent, jumping into the hole and slithering in. Baugi stabbed at Bolverker with the Ratti, but he was too quick. Once he made it inside of the passage, he transformed back into the handsome worker and approached the giantess Gulveg. Now, Gulveg was very lonely inside of the mountain. She was of marrying age and was expected that a suitor would come looking for her. When she saw Bolverker approach, all thoughts of guarding the mead left her mind. For he was handsome, a fine beard, broad shoulders, and Bolverker began to woo the giantess. He whispered sweet things in her ear. He complimented her beauty, and Odin's charms began to work on her. Bolverker and Gulveg spent 3 nights together under the mountain. What transpired between them is up to your speculation. But she was so enamored with Bolverker after the 3 nights, she was willing to grant any request he might have of her. Bolverker entreated his new bride with only one question. Where might I find the great cauldron Odrerir, filled with the blood of Kvasir? It is right this way, my love. Forgetting that she was supposed to be guarding it from Bolverker himself. All I require is 1 sip of it, said the Allfather, still in disguise. 1 sip can do no harm. My brother would not miss 1 sip, I think. And so she allowed him to pick up the great cauldron, which he drained in 1 drink. With the mead of poetry safely inside of his belly, Odin transformed into a great eagle. He made his way through the secret passage and burst out of it in front of Suttung himself. Suttung knew he had been tricked at that point. Gulveg ran after him. What has happened to my love? Her heart broken. And Odin swiftly began to fly back to Asgard, his belly full of the mead. But fire giants themselves are not one to be trifled with. They are masters of magic and illusion. And Suttung himself transformed into an even larger eagle and began to give chase. Odin, in eagle form, flew as fast as he could. But the giant eagle began to gain on him. They flew across the mountains that separate Jotunheim from Midgard, flew up the great tree trunk of Yggdrasil towards Asgard. To throw him off the trail, Odin let out a great fart of mead from his backside. I didn't make that bit up. Blinding the giant and throwing him off the trail, he spat out the dirty mead, many drops of it falling to the ground of Midgard. And if you ever hear poor poetry, bad music, or an awful storyteller, ask yourself if that was the mead that he used for inspiration. When Odin made it back to Asgard, cauldrons and pots and jars were laid out on the Gladtime plain. He spat the mead into them, retrieving it from the unworthy Jotun, Suttung. It is said that Odin shared his mead with anyone who was worthy. And that is how you must treat wisdom, my friends. Share it freely with those who are ready to receive it. I thank you for inviting me here today, my friends. Skål.
Ja.